This is IGN. This open-world sequel gives the series the massive kick in the pants it needed, even though it's got more than a few rough borders. This is your IGN review of Borderlands 4 by Travis Northrop. My passion for looter shooters has burned quite brightly for over 15 years, and Borderlands is the flame that lit the fuse. With Borderlands 4, Gearbox proves it still knows how to bring the boom. After fizzling somewhat with Borderlands 3, it felt like this series had begun to fall behind in the genre it pioneered, but breaking away from segmented levels and embracing an honest-to-goodness open world allows 2025's Borderlands to surprise us again. Drastically improved movement makes it one of the best-feeling first-person shooters out there. The story takes a refreshingly grounded approach that pays off, and the expanded build crafting options like healing items, throwing knives, and weapon enhancements are all fantastic ideas. But taking these swings also comes with some unfortunate downsides, like how exploration is quite literally held back by invisible walls and awkward surfaces that refuse to be trod upon, not to mention fairly rocky technical performance, at least on the PC version provided for review, and numerous bugs. But those rough-edged borders did little to keep me from once again falling head over heels for my first looter shooter love, and blasting through hordes of psychos with a friend or three feels as awesome as it ever has. Borderlands 4 is much more than just a breath of fresh air, bordering on what almost seems like a soft reboot at times. It immediately adds some memorable characters to its cast, like the fancy and charming Levane, who has a somewhat messy dating history with your fellow Vault Hunters. But then every once in a while, it takes a welcome dip back into the nostalgia pool to have Claptrap rattle off a few jokes. Yes, the sassy little robot is back, love him or hate him. It wouldn't be Borderlands without him. With a few neat twists in store and a compelling plot about trying to free this planet, I ended up liking the story quite a bit, even if it doesn't hit the highs of Borderlands 2, especially in terms of its iconic villain. Most of the action itself is what you'd expect from this series, but number 4, or 6 if you count the pre-sequel and Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, makes a number of pretty huge changes that shake up your vault hunting expedition. The biggest by far is the fact that Borderlands 4 is a proper open-world game, as opposed to the traditional approach of large zones separated by loading screens, and it's filled with side quests, timed activities, collectibles, and puzzles to seek out. You also have a whole bag of tricks to aid you in the exploration of Kairos' 4 diverse regions, like a grapple hook that lets you get to areas normally out of reach, a glider to soar over large swaths of land, and a vehicle you can summon on command to zip over hills and through deserts without having to hoof it to a catch-a-ride station first. Aside from a very limited few, such as The Division 2 or Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, fully open-world games are pretty rare in the looter-shooter space, none of which are in first person. There's one major issue with this new open-world philosophy, which is that the physical terrain of Kairos doesn't always rise to the occasion of these free-roaming ambitions. For example, some areas are filled with invisible walls that you'll unsatisfyingly slap into while you're trying to glide over a hill or mantle up a ledge. Borderlands has always had issues with its environments being a bit wonky, but it feels so much more noticeable in an open world where you naturally assume you're meant to explore every nook and cranny. And most games come up with natural barriers like mountains or oceans to make it clear that you can go no farther. Instead, you quickly find the limitations of that exploration and they feel artificial. Although I eventually learned to recognize when a surface was probably not something I was going to be allowed to interact with, it still bums me out that there isn't just some kind of out-of-bounds warning when going places I wasn't meant to. One other major area of evolution is combat, which not only has tighter, more responsive gunplay than any Borderlands game before it, but comes packed with a frankly silly number of new movement options that makes battles much more dynamic. In addition to the existing ways to get around like running and sliding, you can now double jump, glide, grapple hook, dash in any direction, and even swim. That's right, water no longer instantly kills you, praise Moxie. It actually took me quite a while to remember all the new ways I was expected to navigate combat encounters, but with the help of some enemies that smartly push you to make full use of your options, I eventually learned to master them. By the end, I was soaring across the map, dodging attacks like a pro and raining hell down upon my enemies. It became wonderfully satisfying stuff once I got the hang of it. Even better are the boss fights, which have evolved pretty significantly in that they usually involve some special mechanics you have to learn in order to beat them. These are often pretty simple things like picking up and throwing a toxic bomb onto one boss to peel off his armor, or having to juggle yourself in the air with grappling and gliding after the floor becomes hazardous for a phase of another fight. Granted, they don't come close to the mechanical complexity of something you'd find in a Destiny raid, but those are often kind of over the top, and this is a significant step up from some of the basic dodge and shoot it until it dies battles we've seen in Borderlands past. It's a happy medium, and that makes these bosses a lot less forgettable. That's not to say there aren't any basic fights, but it's fair to say that those can be an entertaining excuse to turn off your brain and blast something to bits, and serve as a contrast to the ones with an extra element to them. Rest assured, the major bosses usually step up their game pretty noticeably. Borderlands 4 is a badass open-world evolution of a wonderfully unhinged looter-shooter series that needed to try something new, and it largely nails the biggest swings it takes. Combat is slicker than ever, thanks to exciting new movement options and some interesting enemy designs, and the entertaining story takes things in a fresh direction while still tying neatly into existing lore. The transition to an open world isn't the smoothest, especially when troubling terrain with a few too many invisible walls can make it feel like these environments are all for show, but that's more than worth putting up with in exchange for being able to chart your own path and freely explore the wacky, violent world of Kairos. The bugs my crew and I encountered were bad enough to occasionally sour our co-op groove, but in between them, we had a great time, and my friends and I have found ourselves utterly at the mercy of its loot grind. The Borderlands series feels like it's been a bit stuck in the mud for some time now, and especially after a few patches, Borderlands 4 is exactly the kick in the pants it has needed. Borderlands 4's IGN score? 8 out of 10. Thanks for listening to IGN. My name is Tony Jackson, and for the latest Borderlands 4 updates, visit us at IGN.com.
Spoken Layer.